The Russian Federation is the largest country on Earth easily, even larger than the surface area of the planet Pluto by land area, stretching from Kaliningrad in the west all the way to Vladivostok in the far east, from the disputed Crimean Peninsula to Big Diarmuid Island. In this video about Russia, we will talk about the ongoing tensions between different countries and Russia. We will first talk about the ongoing situation in Ukraine, so the Donbass and Crimea, two important parts of the country, then Alexei Navalny, a Russian politician, the ongoing situation in Belarus, Russia's support for the Syrian government in the civil war in the country that's happening there, the Georgia situation, and Russia's treatment of the Jehovah's Witnesses, a religious organisation. To begin, let's start with the situation in Ukraine. Now, first of all, there are two issues when it comes to Ukraine, the Donbass region and Crimea. Let's start with the Donbass. Tensions go back to November of 2013. Back then, Ukraine's president, whom many considered to be pro-Russian, decided to reject closer ties with the EU, instead believing that he should pursue closer ties with neighbouring Russia. This enraged many Ukrainians, primarily based in the western parts of the country, cities such as Lviv and the capital Kiev. Soon massive protests would break out, turning violent by early 2014, and in February the so-called Revolution of Dignity occurred, causing Ukraine's president to flee through Crimea to Russia. This was said to be backed by the West, enraging many Russian-speaking Ukrainians that wanted closer ties with Russia. This caused many of them to take over key government buildings and declaring the two regions of the larger Donbass area independent from Ukraine, as the Luhansk and Donetsk People's Republics respectively. This caused the Ukrainian government to declare this illegal. They then sent their army in, and sadly the fighting is still going on to this very day. The two regions don't really want independence but would much rather join Russia, and this leads us to Crimea. The Crimean Peninsula, located here, has been a part of Ukraine since its independence in 1991 from the Soviet Union. This goes back to 1954 when the Soviet leader at the time, Khrushchev, who was part Ukrainian, decided to symbolically hand over the territory to Ukraine. Russia despised this, as Crimea is vital for its navy base that Ukraine had leased to it, and so in 2014 it took over the peninsula and annexed it after it became independent briefly for a day and held a referendum which was passed on joining the territory. To this very day, the West refuses to recognise this and has placed economic sanctions on Russia because of this. Secondly, we need to talk about Alexei Navalny. He is a Russian politician that rallies against corruption and is against President Putin's administration. On August 20th, 2020, Alexei Navalny flew from Tomsk to Moscow, when during the flight he became violently ill, forcing the plane to make an emergency landing diverting to Omsk, where he slipped into a coma. He then flew to Berlin in Germany, receiving medical treatment before recovering, then returning to Russia, getting arrested, receiving a prison sentence, and then going on a hunger strike. Today, he is said to be in terrible condition inside a Russian prison. However, he has ended his hunger strike. The West has warned Russia that there will be severe consequences if Navalny dies. When it comes to Belarus, I have my own video explaining the protests, so if you want to watch that, please do. I shall leave a link in the video description and at the end of this video. But to oversimplify it, after elections that many considered fraudulent in Belarus back in August of 2020, long-term leader Alexander Lukashenko, who had been ruling the country since 1994, retook power, sparking mass protests from Belarusians who desperately wanted to see him go. After months of protests, Russia still continues to support the government of Lukashenko, despite the West, which refuses to recognise Lukashenko as the president of Belarus, and so this is another conflict between the two sides. The fourth reason is the war in Syria. I've already done a video on this, so if you'd like to see that again, I will leave a link in the description down below and at the end of this video. But basically, in early 2011, protests broke out against the Assad government, accusing him of being authoritarian and mismanaging the economy. Instead of stepping down, he decided to fight them militarily, causing the rebels to take up arms and fight Assad and his government forces. Extremists and moderates flocked to the rebels, and the situation descended into chaos and anarchy. Russia decided to support the Assad government due to its economic interests and its military bases within the country. This angers the West because they support the moderate rebels. The next reason is the conflict in Georgia. Basically, there are two self-declared countries called South Ossetia and Abkhazia. These informally broke away from Georgia in the early 1990s after Georgia became independent from the Soviet Union. Back in 2008, when Georgia allegedly attacked South Ossetia, causing Russia to intervene, helping the two self-declared countries gain even more land and recognise these two as legitimate countries. From then on, it would install military bases there, despite the West declaring that both of the two self-declared countries as being illegitimate. Finally, we come to the Jehovah's Witnesses. They are a Christian worldwide religion that has been declared by Russia's Supreme Court as a terrorist organisation on par with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, which is ironic considering the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, awards the family who are members of the religious organisation the Model Family Award, celebrating the fact that they are a family that should be imitated and admired. Jehovah's Witnesses have had a hard time in Russia historically and before in the Soviet Union due to them primarily being viewed as an American organisation due to their governing body of the organisation being based in the US. Although not all of the governing body members are American nationals, the Constitution of Russia guarantees freedom of religion, including for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and so this has been a source of tension between the West and Russia. Now, I hope you found this video on Russia's issues with other countries interesting. It really does fascinate me, and I hope you liked this video, although these were very oversimplifications of these issues. So if you want to learn more about two of those conflicts more in detail, you can look at the Belarus protest video explained or my Syrian civil war video. In the meantime, please suggest any other videos you think I should do in the comments, and as always, thank you for watching this video.